Hello, guys. Well, it's David Vos here. Ah, man, beautiful day. Just got back from the grocery market, and what an experience. Well, I hope you're having a wonderful day. I was telling you guys the other day about the shortages and things and how it's all kind of controlled shortages because they're not out of white flour ever, but they're always out of whole wheat flour. They were out of yeast for a while. They were out. Our store doesn't have free range chicken eggs. Now, I imagine you can still get them, but they're rarer now. It's harder to find. In small stores, you don't have it. All we have at our store is regular old. You get medium, small, and large, and they're just little, don't even look like eggs. Local farm or something. I don't know where they get them. Weiss. Just regular butter, right? There's no grass-fed butter. There's no grass-fed meat or anything, which I don't buy meat. But so I noticed all of this. But the big thing I was telling you guys about the other day was the fact that I would look at the store here, and they had absolutely no real whole wheat bread. They had some brown bread. I call it brown bread. There isn't any whole grain really in it. Even some of them say made with whole grain, but that means they make regular brown bread and sprinkle a little bit. They make it with it, a little grains. But if you look on the back, it'll say 1 gram per serving of fiber, maybe 2 at the most if you get the better stuff. But what you want to find is anything over 4 grams per serving, and they don't have any of that. Well, they didn't for a while. Then they ended up getting 1 loaf, 1 brand, Arnold's, which, by the way, I recommend. It's very good. Tastes very good if you can't find something better, or make it yourself, of course. And it's a 4 grams per serving if you get the 12 grains and seeds, as they say it. Arnold's, 12 grains and seeds, whole grain, 4 grams per serving. It's delicious, especially if you warm it up or toast it. It tastes like you're eating homemade bread right out of the oven. And I usually try to go find some organic grass-fed cow butter, because if you can't get grass-fed milk, well, at least you can eat a lot of grass-fed butter, and you're getting kind of the same thing. But anyway, I'm standing there, and once again, I just happened to hit it when the guy is there who's stocking the shelf. And I said, "Excuse me, can I reach that loaf of bread?" They had about 2 loaves left of this Arnold's whole grain, which, because I don't drive very far, and I have a small town, just a small store, I don't usually get to go to a place where they might have a larger selection. But I like this bread. And thank goodness they had it, and I grabbed it, and I said, "By the way, are you guys going to, get a lot more of this in? It seems like it's always out, and do you have any other brands that you could put in here?" And he said, "Oh, well, there's a worldwide shortage of whole wheat bread." Ah, I said, "There you go." I says, "I knew it. I was just wondering why you were always out of this." He said, "Yeah, we're having problems stocking the shelves with actual whole wheat bread." So this seems to be something maybe that they're having a problem with across the board. Just to let you know, friends, this is not some kind of real kind of famine going on here. They're purposely shutting down certain industries. And I suppose what they're doing is they probably thought, well, we can't just stop having healthy food, period, tomorrow. No more grass-fed meat, no more grass-fed eggs, no more whole wheat bread or anything like that. But what we'll do is we'll pretend we're out of it. We'll barely have any. We'll give them a loaf or 2. We'll just tell them, yeah, we're having troubles, the thingy thing and the pandemic, yammy, and all this stuff. And so this is why. And don't worry about it. Put your mask on, go home. But so most people will never put 2 and 2 together. They'll never figure this out, but they are purposefully taking out certain things that we would normally like to eat by our own choice. Have it your way at nobody's restaurant, right? A sesame seed bun and pickles and whatever you want on it. But no, you don't get that. You just drive through the drive-thru and they say, "Well, sorry, due to local laws, we're not allowed to give you any actual food, but we can throw you the slop through the window and you can just stick your head out the window, and we'll bring the whole card machine right into your car because we're not allowed to touch you in any way. You might be, diseased or something, right? Don't breathe on us through the window and this big, huge, like, spacesuit that we've got, I don't know, whatever. This is the thing that we're going through. And it's a planned famine that we're going to be going through. Maybe at the beginning. And in the end, there may be real famine. But I suspect that during this famine that we're about to go through, there's going to be plenty of garbage food to eat, chips, sodas. I notice there's never any shortage of chips or sodas or candy bars or, salad dressing made with hydrogenated oil. I notice the same thing about peanut butter. It's hard to find at least at my store and a lot of other places, it's getting more difficult. There's less and less options. You can't get the natural peanut butter as much anymore that spreads, the kind made with palm oil. But I don't want to go on and on about this and take up the whole, we've gone 5-6 minutes talking about this now, but it's important. I want you to understand that something's about to go down. Our whole way of life is being manipulated, and you're not going to be able to find, I find they're out of water, the spring water. They got plenty of distilled and tap water on sale for $2.99 a gallon or whatever. But if you're looking for the actual mineral water, which, by the way, it's sitting in those plastic jugs for, they say, up to about 3 years. So it's leaching through the plastic. So even that may not be that good for you. If you can find a well, a spring, if you live anywhere where you got a mountain spring or a river coming down, you may say, oh, well, I can't drink water from the ground. That's filthy. Oh, there might be, some animals peeing in the water upstream. Friends, that's a hoax. Don't let them confuse you. Water purifies itself every few hundred feet, because you know how when you purify water through charcoal and you trust it? Well, why do you not trust the river, which has rocks or charcoal and dirt and sand, and the water runs through the rocks and down the stream, and within, I don't know, I think just a few hundred feet, the water is purified. And so as long as they're not dumping minerals or well, not minerals, but, chemicals and poisons and sewer into the river. If you live in a country where there's no cities within 100 miles or even 30 miles, it's not dumping. If it's a creek, then the only thing you'd have to worry about maybe is a farm upstream. It's got cows peeing in the water or something, But again, even creeks where cows walk and drink through, cows don't normally pee and crap in the water. It doesn't normally work that way. But even if something like that had happened, remember, it's just manure, which is something that they put as fertilizer on your food. It is not what you think. You're not being poisoned by wildlife. So try to find a source of water soon, friends, because you won't be able to get mineral water in the stores. I mean, I'm paying out the yin-yang for water now, because where I'm at, you turn the faucet on and it smells like bleach. There's no way you could drink it. I tried drinking. I didn't realize I was using it for my coffee for the first day or two when I first moved in here. And I've told you guys that it really messed up. You could just feel the I don't know, it just sort of tightened up my muscles and bones, and I couldn't sleep at night. So I went back to the mineral water like 2 days later and put it in my coffee, realized, oh my goodness, what am I doing? So anyway, my dogs had puppies. I got 2 dogs just had puppies. And, up during the spring, they could go, there was water in the creek right behind the house. They would drink out of that. My daughter was upset with me because I wasn't providing them water at the porch. And I explained to her that I can't give them tap water. That'll make them have arthritis and stuff. So I know that there's a creek behind the house and they'll just drink out of that. Well, it's summertime and that creek is dried up and I have to give them water. I cannot give them tap water, especially since they're pregnant. I wouldn't give my dogs tap water anyway. So I have to go to the store and for $1.29 a gallon buy these dogs spring water. And but it's worth it because they're beautiful, lovely friends of mine. These dogs, and I've got like 10 puppies now. And they're just gorgeous, beautiful puppies. They're all mixed in colors, and oh my goodness, guys, can't wait to show you. But on the way home from the market, I was thinking, now yes, I know I've kind of gone a long time just rambling on here, but I want to tell you a couple of things, and we got to think about these things. But I am going to get into the Vestal Virgins. But what I've discovered over the last several days is that I've discovered some new information that I am not sure, how to explain to you guys in a articulate way, quickly, in the jovial way that we usually do. I'm not sure that I could just spit that out at the moment as I'm sitting here. I've got this new information in my head and kind of going through it to see how it fits with what we've already learned. And boy howdy, is it going to upend everything that you may have thought in your mind. Well, we've already done that, right? We already upended everything, and we're on the right track now. We know what we're doing, and we're finding out some information that is just going to, revolutionize the world if anyone would ever listen. But we were talking about the Septuagint version of the Bible, and we have shown, I know that video that we did the other day was very long, was an hour and a half. Somebody said they fell asleep trying to watch it, and I know most of you probably fell asleep watching it. But if you can, watch the whole thing, friends. I know it's difficult, but I try not to make these videos go more than an hour. And I try to make them entertaining and listenable, right? But that whole video, I could not have spit all that data, that information out without reading it straight out to you. First of all, because you wouldn't believe me if I just told you. So I wanted to show you some of the evidence, and I read it to you. No doubt, no question that the Septuagint is the accurate translation. What I have just come across is an entire manuscript that I had no idea existed. Now, you've heard of the Ethiopian church. Oh, buddy, we're going to have to do some research on this Ethiopian branch of the... It's an actual tradition that goes back to the earliest, to the apostles. There is a church. People are always talking about the Roman church and the Orthodox, Eastern Orthodox church and the Armenian church and this and that and the other thing. And nobody ever talks about the Ethiopian Orthodox church, which has their own canon of scripture that includes Enoch, yes. One of you were asking about that. Includes Baruch and Tobit and all the Apocrypha and a whole lot more. All the stuff that different books that you may not even heard of. Even the Clementine epistles and stuff. That was part of Scripture to one of the earliest Orthodox Christian churches. And there was a thing that I was following. I was going to share with you today, actually. I thought I was going to share share it with you yesterday, but then I found this information. I was mulling it over. And so I went ahead and did the Trump thing yesterday. And even today, I'm coming to the point where I'm realizing I'm going to have to kind of give you this, and it's going to take more than one video, is what I'm saying. You've got to understand this. You've got to grasp this. You've got to first understand Septuagint is the right scriptures. Now, I've got a whole nother reason why, or I should say, I have discovered from this Ethiopian doctrines and their canon of scriptures, I have discovered some information that is going to prove, again, beyond any doubt, that the Septuagint is the correct version, and that the Masoretic scribes lied. It's a big hoax. One of the proofs is that in the Masoretic version of the Bible, which, as we've said, is in almost all the versions we have that we're reading today, King James and New World Translation and the NIV and the New Living and all the other Bibles, they go mostly by the Masoretic text when it comes to the Old Testament especially. They can't go by it with the New Testament, of course, and some of the Apocrypha, because it wasn't in the Masoretic text there. They've thrown all that out. But all the Greek manuscripts, the Samaritan Pentateuch and all the others, and now this Ethiopian text that are very ancient, very old, confirms a whole bunch of stuff. Everything that we was confirming about the virgin birth and all that, it confirms. But it also confirms, beyond a doubt, that there was a conspiracy to deceive. And we knew that before I got to the Ethiopian scriptures. But it confirms it and adds something that I was looking for. I knew there was a piece missing. Because the Masoretic scribes took out a certain person in the genealogy where Shem has a son named Arpachshad, and Arpachshad has Selah. Well, in the Masoretic version, that's the way it's written, but in the Septuagint, between Arpachshad and Selah, there's a person called Canaan. Now, it's not spelled Canaan, Canaan, that was the curse of Canaan, the son of Ham. But this is spelled Cainan, which is a little different spelling, and they say it means a little different. But why did they take this Canaan out? Well, it's in the Septuagint, it's in all the other versions, in the Greek versions, in all of it. But here's the proof. It's in Luke chapter 3. We've even talked about this before. But the New Testament, the apostles quoted from the Septuagint because and showed that belongs in there. Now, why do you suppose they would take that name out? Well, that's what I want to share with you. I don't know if we'll get to it in this video, but if not this one, the next video. But we're going to be sharing this information. And wait till you find out why they took this name Canaan out of the genealogy. It turns out Canaan, his father was Arpachshad, but according to the detailed account in the Ethiopian version, it gives you all kinds of details about Melchizedek and the curse of Canaan and these things that we've never heard before. I think now we know why they've been hiding the Ethiopian canon from us, because it's got the whole story, the stuff that the Masoretic scribes took out. But in there it explains that Arpachshad had Selah. Well, Arpachshad had Canaan, and Canaan had Selah. But Canaan didn't just have Selah. He had another child called Melech. That's where we get the Melech, the Molech, this sacred name or whatever. It was a certain priesthood. And see, the Judeans didn't want us to know about this priesthood and where it came from. They didn't want us to know about Molech. They condemned people for thinking that the true priesthood would be the Melchizedek. They didn't go by that, so they took it out of the scriptures. And there's a whole bunch we're going to tell you about this, because Canaan's mother was Yozedek, and so his son was Melech, and his mother was Jehozadak. So Melchizedek is the priesthood that comes from this child, Canaan, that was taken out of your scriptures. Well, not only does it prove the Septuagint version, because everything that it says coincides. And by the way, half of the story that we're just talking about right now is actually in the book of Jubilees, which is a larger version of the book of Genesis. So what we've got in our Bible, I've always said it's a Reader's Digest version. There's only excerpts. Like when you get to Genesis 6:4, it just mentions, the sons of God had relations, daughters of men, and boop, bop, doop, and move on. We don't explain what the heck we're talking about right there. Well, these other manuscripts give you more of the picture, that they kept cutting the version down to where we didn't know what was going on. And the reason why we don't know what's going on is because the Judean priests, like it says in Jeremiah 8:8, the scribes of Yahweh that Jesus condemned, you scribes, he condemned them. They took out things from the Holy Scriptures that would give us a clue about what's really going on. So we'll get into that. We'll explain all of that. What I want to do, and this is why it's kind of difficult, what we want to show, as we've said, the whole Greek tradition, mythology, Olympus and all of this stuff, the 12 Olympian gods and so forth, and the Latin mythologies, and all of the mythologies, every one of them, everywhere, came from the original scriptures. And so the 12 Olympians represent the same thing that the 12 tribes do. So before the Olympians, there was the giants, and there was also the titans. These are three different groups. The original deities, the primordial deities. Well, the same thing is going on in the Sumerian tablets, but it's hard to follow it when you're looking at the scriptures, because the Holy Scriptures that we have is explaining it in a little different way. We're not thinking in terms these are deities, right? We're thinking in terms these are the patriarchs. So the deities or the patriarchs are the same thing. So you've got 12 patriarchs from Jacob, which is the 12 Olympians. And there were more Olympians, but the 12 primary ones. And a very specific one was, remember, the 12 tribes were all boys, right? But there was one girl named Dinah. Well, there's a whole bunch of stories about Dinah. Remember, she's supposedly was raped by the Canaanite, and then her brothers got mad and went over there and murdered all these people that had raped her. Well, it wasn't really exactly what we're told. It wasn't really a rape in the sense of the word, but they wanted to, I guess, one of these Canaanites individuals, Sechem, wanted to marry her, and he went and asked for her hand. But it was a humiliation or something. They didn't do it right. So they were insulted, and they went and murdered them all. Well, after that, Dinah never remarried. She ends up going to Egypt and staying with Sechem because evidently they had a child from this union that she didn't either agree to or whatever. But the child's name was Asenath. And Asenath ends up being the daughter of Potiphar in the Bible, or in the lineage of King On, which goes back to Anu, of the deities. So he was a child of the deities, so he was a royal bloodline. So, of course, Joseph goes back to Jacob, Abraham back to the royal bloodline, but the woman goes back to Dinah, back to the royal bloodline. So Asenath is also of the lineage of Sechem, which is the original lineage of this Canaan, of Melchizedek, which is the higher priesthood, the Melchizedek priesthood, which Joseph then had by virtue of the fact that he became Pharaoh. So there's a whole big story in there. And I'm talking about it because this particular woman figures prominently in the Greco-Latin mythologies. You've heard of the Temple of Diana. Remember, it's the same temple that they called Artemis. That's the same that they called Hestia by the Greeks. The Latins called it Vesta. And this is the woman, the Vesta, that the Vestal virgins were patterned after. But that's the way their story was presented to the world, because they go back to Judah and Jacob and Abraham, just like the Israelites that the tradition we've learned from Judah. Our Bible is the tradition of the Old Testament, pretty much controlled by the Judahites in Jerusalem. And they wrote their story. Well, they had a line of Judah called Perez or Perez. Now there's another line we've talked about from Zerah, and this is up in Syria and the Greek Empire, and this is Zarephath, the widow of Zarephath. Her son is a lineal descendant of this priesthood. So anyway, it's really complicated, and that's why it's difficult to explain all of this and put all these histories and analogies and stuff together. And we're going to do that. But I'm just kind of giving you an overview of things that we're going to be talking about. Because remember we said we're going to talk about the Vestal Virgins. Well, what are they? Why should we think that the Vestal Virgins is the original? Because it's so beautiful when you find out. This is where we get the idea of the king. This is why we don't have a king anymore. Because everybody knows Jesus is king. To fulfill these prophecies and these stories that are really written in the stars that were written in human history. And is in every nation on the face of the earth. But there were two priesthoods. And there were two religions and two deities. And one of them is a liar. Jesus said, your father's a liar. And he says, you scribes, you made a lot of mistakes, and you're leading them to hell, and you're going to pay a very heavy price. And he condemned them. So that's kind of some preliminary information to get us started on the whole story of the Vestal Virgins. I'm probably not going to go straight into the explanation of the whole Vestal Virgins and the Pontifex Maximus and the Rex Seclorum and all of that in this video. I just wanted to kind of give you some information. And I think what we're going to have to do is, because it's so vast, this information, we're not going to be able to give you the whole story about the Vestal Virgins in one video. I'm going to give you some preparatory information in this video. And we're going to also have to, in another video, cover the whole Ethiopian canon of Scripture and show you some interesting points that the Masoretic scribes left out to help us understand who these people, the Melchizedek priesthood, was operating for, and why, and who they were. They were the true children of Shem, but it broke into two groups, as we've said, Israel and Judah. But this has all been hidden from us because of the scribes of Yahweh, who have been sending forth their lying spirits to their prophets. But now, don't think that, well, that means that the Old Testament's not true. It is true. The whole story is true because it tells us how this Yahweh lied. And when you know the whole story and you get the other scriptures and you compare them, what you're finding is there's two deities and they're making accusations against each other. And you will find very quickly that Yahweh is an imposter. And of course, this is what Jesus told us. I mean, this is part of the story. You got these two covenants and you got to make up your own mind. And Jesus said, you're a liar. And he offered as a free gift eternal life to anyone who will choose it. But we have to know what we're doing. And they have taken all of this information away from us. So we want to bring it back to everyone's attention and put it out there so people will begin to understand what's really going on with the Old and the New Testament. Once we figure out in Greek mythology the corresponding characters in the Bible, we're going to have it licked. And that's what we're going to have to do. And that could take, and we've been endeavoring to do this in the past, and I've given some information on this. But so the 12 tribes of Israel are the 12 Olympians, but before that there was the giants. Now, the Bible tells you about that, right? It calls them Gibborim, the Anunnaki, the sons of Anak. And they ruled the world before the children of Israel. You know, the lineal priesthood of Jacob. And Diana, who became this eternal virgin mother, who after she had produced this child remained celibate, and they developed, I guess Diana stayed at the home. This is why the Vestal Virgins, they're at the hearth, right? And they have, see, this is important to understand because what is this sacrament, this holy sacrament? Well, it's the bread of life, the staff of life, and the fruit of the vine. Now, the men were out hunting, right? These were 12 brothers that were out fighting and hunting and so forth. But Diana stayed home and made the holy sacrament and understood the wisdom of nature. And she would make at the hearth, she'd have to keep the perpetual fire burning. And what is that perpetual fire for? It's the altar. And that is where they made their holy sacrament, the bread. So she knew how to make the holy sacrament, and she knew all about the herbs. She understood the mushroom. She understood the psilocybin. She understood about all of the properties in these flowers, the rhododendron and the daffodil and the rose hips and the morning glories and all of these different unique herbs that the Lord gave us for the healing of the nations. And she would know how to prepare the sacred blood of the Lord, which is his holy body and his holy blood, or because the Lord is dwelling in all of us. He is in all, above all, and through all. In his holy body we must partake and commune with him. And so it was this holy Vestal Virgin. Now, if you look in the stories and histories, you'll say there were 6 Vestal Virgins. That's not true. There were 7. Why? Because the 6 Vestal Virgins assisted the one called Vesta, which others call Diana, which in the Bible is Dinah. So this is where the story starts, and it's important to understand because it's where the traditions of the coming Christ, the coming Messiah, the sacrament, the holy meal, all of the stuff that we need to understand why we're Christians and what we're really doing here. But before we get into any more of that, I want to share with you my thoughts on the way home from the store. Because I think it's important that we understand this. Because, you see, this other deity, Yahweh, he has tried and endeavored to deceive by giving us a whole hoax about his priests his scribes that are so trustworthy, and painstakingly translated it without error, right? And this is why we followed the Masoretic scribes, which is a big hoax. They weren't priests. They were scattered all over. They had lost the name. They lost who they worshiped. They don't even know the name. They don't even know which is proof that they're worshiping the devil. Because if they were worshiping the true and living deity, well, you can only get that information by the Father's help. Jesus said, nobody could reveal that to you, Peter, but the Father revealed that to you. So the fact that these Judeans had no idea who the deity was, some secret that no one knew anymore, proves that they had lost everything. They didn't have any holy right to be our scribes and the ones we would trust. Back when the Sanhedrin was still going, they got together and decided to make the true translation, and they made the Septuagint. 1,000 years later, now we're going to accept some apostates that came out of Babylon that scattered all over the world somewhere and took over the Catholic Church and threw out the divine names and threw out all the mysteries and all the truths and burned down the Alexandrian library. I mean, they put out the flame of the holy priesthood, the mysteries, the Vestal Virgins. They disbanded them, and they put out the flame in 391 by Theodosius I. Well, at the same time, they went down there and leveled the Alexandrian library to the ground. And why do you suppose they did that? Because they don't want anyone to know what they're doing. It's a hoax. It's a scam. And they've done it pretty well. So, but this goes so deep that you couldn't even imagine it, really. It's so deep that you don't even know the lies that you're believing are lies. The very things that you believe with all of your heart. See, mankind once knew that the world around them was only their own creation. They didn't identify with their own thoughts as though that's who they were. They knew they were a being. You get a lot of people today, these great and powerful, smart, wise people that being taught from, Stanford University or some Harvard, idiot, trying to prove to you that there can't be any deity because there is no consciousness. And here's their proof in a nutshell. They will tell you that the self can't exist because when you were 5 years old, your self you were a child, you were 4 foot tall, you had a mother, you sucked your thumb, and that was yourself. But now you're grown up, you're 30 years old, you no longer suck your thumb, you're much taller, your mama passed away, you look different, you wear different clothes, you think different thoughts, you are aware of an entirely different picture. Therefore, your self didn't really exist, it was just an illusion. Here's why that's ridiculous, and it's subterfuge. Because that's not what the self is. The self is not all these thoughts and assumptions about yourself. It's not the illusion around you that changes from day to day. The self is something that never changes. It's the observer. The observer is the spirit, the being, the mind, the person, the soul that has nothing to do with this physical reality or your illusionary thoughts and dreams and hopes and this lustful nature that you think is so important that you become mesmerized and begin to identify with it. It's kind of like saying, I built this home. It's so amazing. It's made out of marble and gold, and I plated the ceiling with silver, and there's jewels hanging from it, and so important and precious, and I love it so much. I think it's me. If it were to burn down or I were to lose it, I wouldn't be me anymore. That's ridiculous. Your house burns down, you're still you. And this is important that we understand this. We never lose who we are. We live in a place without time or space. Regardless of where we are, who we are, how old we are, where we live, we're still us. We're still the person, the being. It never changes. We have a continuum, and we continue to think and believe and do and act. Even if we are on another planet and a million years have gone by, it's still us, or we've incarnated into 1,000 bodies, and we've had 1,000 husbands and 1,000 wives and 1,000 children and 1 billion trips to the Grand Canyon and back. But we're still us. We're still we. We're still the I am. The other I am is Yahweh, the ego, the lower ego that identifies with all this stuff going on. And that's why it's so dangerous, because people today are living in a materialistic world where they identify with the world. And they're like, oh, the world's coming to an end. I think I'm going to die. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm scared. You see, that's what Yahweh did to confuse you. But people back in the day, they knew the truth. Why? Because they didn't allow themselves to get into the state of mind of bondage that the law of Yahweh brought. The fear of death. Yahweh forbade us to know who we were, to partake of the fruit of eternal life, which is to be able to go within our own self and see the self, who we are, and recognize and know and understand the true and living divine being who is in all, through all, and above all, that I and the Father are one. If you've seen me, you've seen the Father. How did that happen? Well, because through law, we were told that woman is something other, and she's forbidden to be revealed. You've got to keep her veiled, which is a symbol. Not only, literally, it's a schizophrenia, because our fellow brothers and sisters, our wives, everybody are separated from us by law and slavery and bondage and fear and ignorance. But at the same time, it's a symbol of the fact that in our own psyche, because remember, the two shall be one flesh, but he who is joined unto the Lord is one spirit. And without being one, then we are simply alone. We are simply apart. We're schizophrenic. We're afraid. We're under law. We're under curse. So, it's the law of Yahweh that has deceived us. But it's not just that our own schizophrenia has deceived us, but it's also the fact that we are no longer able to go into the garden, in the middle of the garden, and partake of the energies coming from the true and divine light. The living waters that bubble up from your innermost being are not flowing because of this block, which is law, ignorance, which causes death. So how does that relate to us today in the world that we live in? Yes, it's still that way today, even though we're not under the Mosaic law per se. People think we're not under the law anymore, right? And yet they go to the court, and the guy with a robe stands there and slams his hammer down and says, "You're going to prison." Well, why? Oh, because you're under law. What law? Well, the precedent for this law was the law of Moses. This is why you put your hand on the Bible and swear, right? Everything we do, marriage is a legal matter, right? Why would two people who want to share their life together and naturally, like Puppies don't go to the court and get a permission to have a family. My puppy didn't. I sure didn't give him any permission. In fact, I was trying to keep him away from that because I didn't necessarily want all these puppies at this time. But they do what they got to do, and I love the puppies. And we're told, oh, don't have puppies, you evil person. Why, there's too many puppies in the world, and you're going to bring more puppies into the world, and you're such an evil person. Oh, don't drop that piece of, bread on the ground. Oh, it's pollution. Oh, don't pee on the ground. You might destroy the world. See, all of this is schizophrenia. Because that's how the world operates. Puppies are born and they live their life. My puppies are going to be blessed because I'm going to take good care of them and give them to homes where they're wanted. People want pets. We need the pets. It's not like we can just stop. It's like saying, oh, well, abortions is necessary because, we got too many children. That's a human life. You don't murder children because you think in your own little twisted mind that global warming and the government says you can't do it. And it's not to the point where we have to obey the law, but it's to the point where they've gotten into our own psyche and our own conscience, and they've made us feel guilty about participating in the world. Let me give you an illustration. I know a lot of good people, myself included, who thinks that when somebody litters, it's just the most terrible, wicked, evil thing in the entire world. Well, in a sense, it is. I mean, it's not something we should do. I don't recommend that you litter. I wouldn't do it at all. But here's the problem. We're in this catch-22. Because if you're going to have a happy life, if you're going to be alive, you're going to have to be free. And to be free, you're going to have to be free inside yourself and your own mind. The outer bondage is just auxiliary. Like somebody who's in prison, they're certainly not physically free, but they might be free in their mind. Like for instance, you could be, somebody could say, listen, unless you go and beat up 15 people and rob them and steal from them and lie to them, we'll put you in prison. Take away your freedom. Okay, which way is the free way? The free life. I would rather go to prison, even though I hate prison. I mean, I don't know if I'd probably physically die in prison, but at least I'd be spiritually alive because I refuse to let you constrain my spirit, my truth, my knowing. I won't hurt others. I won't rob them or lie to them. I am free to be who I am, to be open and not ashamed of being who we are and having to run around telling people lies. That's the person who's in bondage. So a person in prison who knows he's done nothing wrong, they're free. Now, they're even more free if they're out of prison because then they're physically free as well. But the important thing is to be spiritually free. Because if you get physically in bondage and then you finally get in bondage spiritually, then it means you're stuck here for a long time until you can work that out and wake up. So freedom is not primarily the physical bondage that they're putting us in. But they use that because that causes physical pain and sorrow, and they can give you pleasure and they can manipulate us that way. So the law is external, and it's what confuses and lies to us. So a guy who, say, just woke up, maybe he went to sleep back in 1000 before Christ. He went to sleep and somehow we put him in a deep freeze, and then we just opened up this little container and he thawed him out and brought him back to life in the year 2022. And he was told, now listen, whatever you do, don't speed, don't go through a stop sign. If you're told not to, do that, if you got to stop, you'll be arrested. Don't jaywalk. Don't say certain things, political things. Don't tell the truth. Believe lies. You must believe the lie. Because if you believe the truth, then you're going to want to speak the truth. So it's better just not even to believe that. Just accept whatever we tell you. Okay? And if you ever drop a piece of paper on the ground, you're a litterer. We'll fine you $1,000. Or maybe in prison for 10 years or something. I don't know. Don't even ask questions of what's behind that fence at Area 51. Okay, that's not allowed for you. It's taboo. You are not allowed to know what the government is doing. And so what we do is we cower and we are afraid. Now, it goes so deep because we begin to feel we're good people because we don't litter. We're good people because we obey the stop signs. We're good people because we give $2 to a homeless person on the way home from work. None of that is important. That is all just actions that are coming from some program that they're giving us to give us a false idea of what is good and what is free. And it's not free. A free person is this. Let me explain what a free person really is. A truly free person who is really woke. Because a lot of you think you're all woke and you're not. And here's the truth. If you woke up in the morning and you walked out and you noticed that there was clothes on the living room floor, and maybe there were dishes in the sink, and there was the door was wide open, and maybe the toilet seat was up. All right, you'd say, I can't deal with this. This is crazy. This is driving me nuts. I've got to go and wash my hands 3 times and do the dishes and make sure all the clothes are put away and I can't even live until I get this done. Why? Because I'm not a good person if I don't get up, get all this done, go and take 3 showers, comb my hair exactly, go get a haircut, groomed, and because I can't look, ruffled anyway. And I've got to go to work, punch the clock on time. I can't be late. I've got to dress a certain way, wear my sideburns a certain length, not allowed to have any, it's certain fads, certain times of history we have to wear our hair a certain way. Women's got to wear makeup or they just feel like they're nothing, right? Push-up bra, whatever. They got to make themselves look normal. And you got all this stuff going through your mind. You're not free. Who cares if there's stuff laying on the ground? You think the dog cares whether the stuff gets thrown around the house, whether there's dust in the house? I know, we're humans, and we like clean environments. Well, guess what? That's a natural thing. And we'll naturally get up and clean when we want to, when we feel happy. But when you're under this anxiety, under these false teachings of this world that condemns you for being a real person, well, you're lazy. You don't want to do it. You're just laying around. You don't believe in help, going to work and being a part of society and being a patriot while you're just a bad person. And this is where so many people are, they call it walking the razor's edge. I don't believe in walking the razor's edge, because to walk the razor's edge means that you feel it necessary to somehow appear to the world that you're following their laws. But in reality, you're free. But you're not really free if you're trying to appear unto men. That's why Jesus kept saying, don't let your left hand know what your right hand's doing. Don't appear before men to be doing what's right, but just go in your closet and do what's right before the Lord. So you know in your own heart that you are not a bad person if there's clothes on the floor. You say, well, if I don't keep up, I'll get behind and blah, 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 Well, maybe you're living in an environment where you have to keep up. And that's why it's so difficult, because some people just don't want to keep up anymore. This whole world, it's like we're tippy-toeing around with a bunch of pickup sticks. They're about to fall. They're about house of cards. Like, oh, don't move. The whole house of cards could fall down at any moment. Then what would we do? We'd probably just go insane. Yeah, people are literally going insane. You know how you feel when you got to do the dishes and all this stuff, or you're a bad person? And you think, well, if I keep on, and even if I get behind, I'll wake up one morning, no matter how bad I feel, and take some drugs or some Valium, or whatever, I'll get the work done, and then I'll feel better, right? But this is an endless task. You'll never feel okay. You'll never be enough for Yahweh. You'll never be enough for this world, and that's why we got to get out of this world. And maybe if houses cannot be lived in, once the stench gets so bad, you just start, throwing your clothes everywhere and you never dust and you never clean, then maybe the problem is the structure that we're living is not the natural way. And this is the problem. He's put us in an environment that's unnatural. Because in the woods, you don't have to clean every day, dust dust the trees. That's not our job. It was never supposed to be our job to go around cleaning. No, the natural secrets that the Vestal virgins understood, right, in the holy priesthood, the original teachings were that we should follow our natural inclinations. It was a holy priesthood, that of the mother. And what did the mother do? She brought forth the children. And she does it naturally. You don't have to tell her what to do. Now, some of these people in the world today, they're so frizzled out of their mind, they got to go to work, and then they think, well, I can't have a kid. And then the kid's coming and like, oh, I can't feed the kid. And then they don't want kids. So they commit abortions or whatever. Because this world does not allow for you to be a human being. They don't let you partake of the herbs. This is why we're sick and dying. You know what? You go get some of these natural herbs. We won't even say which ones. Probably not allowed to. And microdose on those, or in other words, just consume them naturally at your own, pace. We're not talking about overdosing and going out of your mind. You can overdose on sugar, caffeine, any substance. You can't just eat bananas all your life. You can't just eat potato. You got to do this properly. And you would know it's provided for us in the right amounts. The creek comes down and we drink until we're satisfied and we stop. We don't need somebody to tell us how to drink and how much to drink. But in this world we do, because it's like going in a room where there's no air, but you've got a little air tank over there. Now it's an environment that's not natural. Now you got to know how to, tune the nozzle so it produces the right amount of mixture of oxygen and whatever. And then you got to breathe it, and leave it on your face, a certain limit, take so many breaths, and you got to be trained how to breathe all over again. And now, of course, if you don't breathe right, you'll die. And so people are frantic. Don't touch that button. Hold, no, breathe like this and do this and, walk like this. And now we're just all schizophrenics running around scared out of our minds. I'm telling you guys, until we understand that this entire world's a lie and get out of it. And that does not mean, like Jehovah's Witnesses, we're no part of the world, right? We still go to all the doctors. We still, we go get our jab thing, and we dress a certain way. Now, you can't have that scruffy beard, and you got to wear a suit and tie and come to the meetings on Sunday at 9 o'clock in the morning or whatever time they meet and do all these arbitrary things. And if you don't do all these arbitrary things, why, you see, Yahweh's not going to be very happy with you. Jehovah's probably going to just, shun you. He's going to be very disappointed and send you to a little place called Armageddon, and then that'll be it for you, buddy. You better be very scared and get down on your knees and worship him. See, that is the situation that people do not realize they're in, because they say, well, I'm not Jehovah's Witness. I'm free. Are you a Mormon? Oh, well, same thing. Oh, no, I'm not a Mormon. I'm a Lutheran. I'm a Catholic. I'm a Muslim. Well, look at these Muslims sitting there. Oh, some rock in the desert, right? Buddhists sitting around. Hey, lighting candles. Everybody's in this illusion. Stop it. What we need to do is realize we don't have to have golden plated toilet seats. We don't have to have marble counters. We don't have to make our toast in a toaster that works with electricity, that you need to have a big electric plant down the street that's polluting the entire world. Now we're all going to die. No, you don't have to do that. You don't need a car. Why? Because you don't need to drive halfway around the world to, it's like too fast. It's too much. We weren't supposed to live that way. We were supposed to live in a village with our families. We're supposed to marry our sweetheart that we grew up with. And we weren't supposed to be under all these artificial rules about, your hair's messy, you leave the toilet seat up. But see, there wasn't any toilet in those days like that. We didn't have a lot of clutter to upset us because there was no clutter. We didn't have Chinese factories producing glitter and clutter and all these important things that we just gotta have, right? We'll spend all our children's food money on all this toys. Well, the children don't have any toys, so we're going to have to stop eating for a while so we can get them toys. The children only need toys because they have nothing else to do sitting in an environment that is ridiculous in front of a television, the propaganda. So, when I was a kid, I had no toys. I lived in the woods. My toys were the trees, the rocks, the rivers. Mom would let me go outside. I'd take off in the morning, take off, and come back hours later. Where were you? Oh, I was out in the woods hunting. Oh, okay. Whatever. Mom taught me from the time I was little how to protect myself and how to be a smart person. I knew how to. She didn't worry that much about me out in the nature. I'll tell you where you need to be worried about your children. When you let them go to school all day learning from these evil, wicked Satanists, then you better be worried. They could be raped, pillaged, and murdered in their own classroom. There's where you need to worry. But we're not allowed to live anymore, and that's the problem. So a lot of you guys are like, oh, I'm going to vote for Trump and make America great again. Well, look, the best Trump could do, even if he was sincere, even if he wasn't part of the problem, which he is, right? But let's just assume he's a great guy. He's just trying to help us. Well, what's he going to do for us? He's going to make the economy strong? What does that mean? It means we're going to have more money and more crap and more toys and live in more of these little bungalows where we're sitting in front of the propaganda tube, learning all of our crazy, evil, wicked propaganda about how we went to the moon and now we're going to Mars, and none of that's even true. Sucking the oil out of the ground. And who's got the resources? Who's making all the money from all the resources that belong to the human race? I guess it's Mr. Peabody, who just hauled everything away in his coal train. Friends, we got to wake up and realize the only way is to go back to the original teachings of Jesus Christ and the Vestal Virgins and get around the campfire, the eternal flame, and learn the mysteries from the Divine Mother about the natural herbs, that when we partake of these things, we don't have to know how they work. Turns out there's actual opioid receptors in our body and cannabinoid receptors, and we need all of these phytochemicals, and we need all of these dopamines and flavonoids and all these things that natural herbs give us, but we're not allowed to partake of. Only thing you're eating nowadays, you got 4 things you eat. That's all they grow. Corn, soy, wheat, and man-made synthetic chemicals. And everything that is in a store is made from one of those. Soda is made from corn syrup. All the foods in the boxes are made from either wheat, soy, or corn. The meat, the fake meat they're going to be serving you is made from soy, corn, and wheat. And you get all the oils from the corn, from the wheat. There's soy oil, right? There's soy milk. They're phasing out all these other things that might be good for you. I went to the store just a few minutes ago trying to get some cinnamon. Guess what? Do you guys realize that all that stuff you're getting says cinnamon? No, it's not cinnamon. Tell the guy that's running your store, you demand that they actually have actual real cinnamon in your store. Ceylon or something cinnamon. The other cinnamon is a fake kind of cinnamon. It's not very good for you. It tastes sweet and everything, but it kind of tastes sweet and all that. People think it's nice, but it's not the real cinnamon. So the stuff, we got a few things still in our stores that we can still buy for luxuries that we enjoy. But those are all being phased out, and all we're going to have is some sort of food that might look or be some kind of synthetic meat or synthetic cheese or synthetic oil or synthetic peanut butter, but it's all made out of what? Wheat, soy, chemicals, and corn. And there might be a couple other things that they're going to continue to make. I don't know how many different things, but it's mostly those 4 things. Even the water is basically going to be synthetic, right? They're going to recycle the water from the sewer and bottle it and charge us just about as much as it used to cost for a gallon of gas for a gallon of water. My water's now up to $1.29 a gallon. That's how much the gas was a few years ago. Just a couple of years ago, gas was only about $2 a gallon, just a little bit more than what I'm paying for water right now. And how in the world did we get to a place where we're paying that much for water? Because they have taken every one of the municipal water departments in every city, town, and village in the world. They've taken them over and they've started dumping chemical poisons in the water so that you cannot drink it. And by the way, I wouldn't bathe in it. When you bathe, especially people standing in a shower, soak in the tub for hours, or even minute and long, 30 minutes, you're absorbing all the chlorine or fluoride or whatever they're putting in there. You're absorbing it into your body. Don't do that. It's not healthy for you. It's drying out your skin. You put bleach on your skin, it's going to dry it out. It's going to destroy. And by the way, eventually we got so many things I got to do and I can only do so much. But I still want to give you guys some information about health that'll just completely make you so glad that you learned it. Because it's a secret that you just will never believe until I tell you about your health and how they're lying to us. You'll never get cancer. You'll never die of any disease once you learn this. I'm going to do that video soon, friends. But I got to get through this Vestal Virgin thing, and then we'll do that. And goodness gracious, we've got so many things to talk about. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and go now. It's over an hour. So we'll go ahead and upload this, and we'll see you tomorrow. May the Lord bless you. Have a good one.